Greetings from the Asian Productivity Organization Secretariat. Welcome to all viewers to this APO's Productivity Talk, a series of discussion on the topics related to productivity. We are now broadcasting this event live from Tokyo. So our discussion today will revolve around the relevance, role, and contributions of small and medium enterprises to the 17th Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Sustainable Development Goals is a set of international development goals consisting of 17 goals and 169 targets to eradicate poverty and realize a sustainable world. Direct as well as indirect connection between SMEs and 17 goals of SDGs can be established through the role and contribution of SMEs in creating employment and in generating income, particularly for the poor and the marginalized groups of the society. So the connection can also be established through the role of SMEs as service providers as well as energy users or polluters leaving the environmental footprints. So enhancing SMEs productivity can also be done by focusing the efforts on the goals and targets under SDGs with the weakest support from the SMEs activities. As SDGs highlights, there are widely cited critical intervention for SMEs that are needed in order to increase productivity for SMEs, which are access to finance, which is under goal number 8 of the SDGs, and participation in global value change, which is under the goal number 9 of SDGs. In general, SMEs have significant contribution in meeting the most economic of SDGs, which are promoting inclusive and sustainable economic growth, employment, and decent work for all, and also promoting sustainable industrialization and fostering innovations. So to discuss about the subject, we are joined today from Kathmandu, Nepal, by Dr. Biswo Poudel. So good afternoon from Tokyo, Dr. Poudel.
Thanks, Sonny. Glad to be here, and thanks for having me here.
We are glad to have you here today in this talk as well. So Dr. Poudel, just a little bit of introduction about himself. He is currently an associate professor of economics at the Kathmandu University. He has been, among others, in economics advisory position for various organizations such as International Labour Organization, International Trade Union Congress, National Planning Commission of the Government of Nepal, as well as an economist at the Office of Millennium Challenge of Nepal. So before Dr. Poudel will start his sharing, I would like to inform viewers that today's session will be interactive. I'm inviting viewers to leave comments and questions in the live chat below. So I would like now to request Dr. Poudel to start with your presentation.
Thanks, Sonny. Let me start right away. So my presentation today will be about SMEs and their impact on SDGs, and I will be focusing a lot on practices and experience from Nepal. In Nepal, actually, SMEs are not uniformly defined. We have a lot of definitions going on here and there, and the latest Industrial Enterprises Act defines, micro industries as, they have like many variables to define them. If the fixed capital is less than 2 million rupees, which is around $20,000, if it is run by with annual turnover of less than 10 million, if it is employing less than 9 workers, if it is consuming less than 20 kilowatt of electricity when in full capacity, then it is micro industry. For a small, it doesn't have that elaborate definition, but if the firms have less than 150 million in working fixed capital, but more than 2 million, it is small industry. Then mediums are those with fixed capital between 150 to 500 million rupees, and the large are those with more than 500 million rupees. So let's say a lot of time it's good to remember that around 110 rupees is $1, $1 US. So, but this is the official government definitions, which a lot of government entities they don't use right now. Banks have their own criteria. For example, they will be just saying, any firm with less than certain amount of loan will be small or SME. For example, Sanima Bank, I think for them it is 200 million rupees. If the firm is borrowing less than 200 million rupees, then they would just consider it as a small SME firm. So SMEs, they are backbone of economy for pretty much all countries, many countries. The World Bank study, it says 45% of employment and 33% of GDP in emerging market economies are created by SMEs. There is one OECD study that says 4 out of 5 jobs right now are being created by SMEs. In Nepal also, there was an economic census in 2018, and it was one of the, like really big of its kind, this census. It found that 95.37% of all firms in Nepal are micro firms. 4.2% are small firms, 0.24% are medium firms, and 0.19% are large firms. There were like 900,000 firms in Nepal in that census. So this is how it is. Large firms, by definition, very small fraction of total firms, stuff like that. And among the unregistered firms, which is kind of it proxies for informal firms, 99.5% of all firms are micro in size. And out of more than 3.2 million total employed people, 2.74 million people were actually employed by SMEs. So they have this really big presence in a Nepali economy. They account for 85% of total employment. And out of these SMEs, 70% are employed by micro, 25% are by small, 5% by medium-sized enterprises. 62% of those employed are male, 70% are the owners are male. So you can see male dominance, even though it may not be, it may be comparable to other comparison countries like ours, Nepalese size country, but male dominance is there. So what we can see is they are basis for growth because they constitute such a large fraction of whole economy, whole employment, and also they are basis for women empowerment, gender parity, a lot of things, because so many women are employed there. The major challenges, I enumerate 3 challenges. The number 1 is access to credit. So there had been one question about access to credit in 2018 census. 35.2% of SMEs, they say they have only 35% said we get money from bank. So they actually have really serious access to credit problem. Asian Development Bank did a study in 2018, and it said annual financing gap is around $4 billion per year for SMEs here. So that is a problem.
I think we have technical difficulties there from Dr. Poudel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please continue, Dr. Poudel.
Can I continue?
Poudel, please.
Hello? Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Yeah. And then a lot of Nepalese firms, irrespective of the owners or whatever, they always say getting skilled workers is a fundamental problem for them. This was a major problem cited in a study supporting economic transformation set study by Overseas Development Institute around 5 years ago, but they had a series of studies. And they always say, getting skilled workers is very difficult problem in Nepal. You can have them, and after 2 years, they normally leave, 2 or 3 years, they leave. So entry level, they find a lot of workers, but after they get certain skill, they leave. And that's a major problem. Getting good technology is problem. A lot of them are using old technologies. So these are the major problem with the SMEs right now. So let me go to Nepal's SDG target and how they connect with the SMEs. SDG target 1 is like, it's about ending poverty in all its form. Nepal's target is to have a population of 4.9% living below US dollar 1.25 per day by 2030, which is right now 17%. And then people living below US dollar 1.9 per day. Right now, 28.5% people live below this income. The target is to make 8%, and then achieve per capita GNI of $2,500 by 2030, which is right now around $1,000. So it's a really ambitious target. SDG 2 is about ending hunger and achieving food security and improved nutrition. So under nourishment, right now, this is 27.3%. The target is to bring it down to 3%. And the stunting, currently, the 32% of children are stunted. The target is to bring it to 15%. The underweight problem is 20% right now. The target is to bring it down to 9%. So SMEs can help these things because most of the employment given in SMEs are for poor people, people without significant skills. These SMEs are small in themselves, so they, obviously large firms also employ a lot of poor people, but SMEs in particular engage poor and marginalized people. That's why their role in meeting both of these targets will be significant. SDG 3, it's about health, so ensuring healthy life, promoting well-being for all. The target is to reduce maternal mortality rate to 79 per 100,000 live birth, which is right now 125, and then under 5 mortality rate to be reduced to 20 per 1,000 live birth, which is right now 28. Neonatal death rate is right now 18. They want to bring it down to 12. The way SMEs are connected to this goal is because many of healthcare providers in Nepal, they are mostly small clinic owners, pharmacies, labs. Government presence in health sector is significant, but so is private sector presence, and they can help in meeting this goal a lot. Similarly, SDG 4 is about education goal. The target includes 99.5% of primary education enrollment, which is right now, I think, 98.5%. And then high learning achievement in math, English, Nepali. Also high gender parity in education, which is right now reasonably good at primary school level. And high literacy rate for adults. 99% schools with WASH facility is the target. Right now, I think 85% have WASH facility. So one way SMEs are connected with our education goal is because almost 20% of students go to private schools in Nepal, in particular, under high school level. So for profit-run schools, a lot of these are just for-profit schools run by SME entrepreneurs, and they have a significant goal in meeting this education-related goal. SDG 5 is about achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. So one target is by 2030, wage equality will be 92%, which is right now 72%. And then gender empowerment index target is to reach 0.69 from current 0.6. Similarly, lifetime physical and sexual violence experienced by women will be only 5% women will be experiencing that by 2030, which is right now 22.2% women. Only 4.1% women aged 15 to 19 years will be married, which is right now 18%. So stuff like this, the gender equality issue is really, important in Nepal. And SMEs are largest job provider in Nepal, and they can contribute definitely to wage equality issue, also to women empowerment, assuming that economic upliftment of women will result in empowerment of those women also. Similarly, SDG 6 will be, it's about achieving universal and equitable access to safe drinking water, sanitation, hygiene, all that thing. Even right now, most of the cities in Nepal, they actually rely on small water supplies. So SMEs are very active in water and sanitation services, and they can contribute to SDG 6 goal in Nepal. I think this situation is very different from more developed countries, where actually SMEs probably have less role than in Nepal. For SDG 7, it's about energy use. 99% of population will have access to electricity, which is right now around 80%. Target is to have 24 gigajoule per capita energy consumption, which is right now 18.1. And then energy efficiency, per capita electricity consumption will be 1500 kilowatt hour, which is very ambitious because right now it's around 230. Energy efficiency in industry will be 40 megajoule per 1,000 rupees of product, which the target is to, this is, okay, so right now it's 45.3. So this is the target for 2030. So because many of Nepali firms are SMEs, they can be more energy efficient by adopting green technologies. They reducing pollution. Yes, MSMEs contribute right now 60 to 70% of pollution in emerging economy, and Nepal is just like that. Though there is no data for Nepal, not least that I have heard of, but this is something MSME Nepal cannot be very significantly different from other emerging economies. So I think this is comparable. So SDG 8 is about promoting sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, decent work, and all that thing. The target is to achieve sustained GDP growth rate of 7% per annum by 2030. Informal employment in non-agriculture will be below 10%. Underemployment will be below 10% by 2030. Right now, I think the first one, from employment in non-agriculture is like 54%. Underemployment is 23.1%. Similarly, the 80% of household will have access to cooperatives within 30-minute walk. And then, which is right now only 64.4%, 36 bank branches will be for 100,000 population by 2030, which is right now 23 bank branches. And 25% life insurance coverage is targeted for 2030, which is right now only 10.3%. So, SMEs have indirect role in all of these goals. Many other goals are there in SDG 8, obviously. I'm just picking the major important goals in my presentation. So SDG 9 is about building resilient infrastructure, promoting inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and fostering innovation. In a road right now, I think 1.3 kilometer per square kilometer, but paved road is like only 0.07 kilometer per square kilometer in Nepal. The target is to make 0.25 kilometer per square kilometer of paved road. And manufacturing value added target is to have this as 15% of GDP. Right now it's only 8.8% of GDP. Industry will be contributing 25% of GDP by 2030. Right now it's like less than maybe around 15%. Small industries with loan or line of credit, the target is to have 30% of them. Right now it's 22.7%. R&D expenditure is very low in Nepal right now. It's 0.62% of GDP. The target is to have 1.5% of GDP as an R&D expenditure. Economies normally, they vary in terms of the contribution of SMEs in economies. In Albania, for example, SMEs contribute 21% of total manufacturing output. Ecuador maybe 0.4%. Nepal has mostly small firms. We saw that they contribute a lot to SDGs. They can contribute a lot to SDGs by by aiding the manufacturing value added, or producing more, spending more on R&D, stuff like that. So SDG 10, the target is this is about reducing inequality. Consumption inequality, our target is to make it 0.16 in Gini coefficient, which was 0.33 in 2015. Income inequality, 0.23 is the target from 0.4 right now. Then Palmer ratio, which is the ratio of 10% rich to 40% poor people. The ratio will be 1 in 2030 from 1.3 in 2015. Wage index to consumer price index, the target is 3. from 2.96 in 2019 actually. And then microfinance will be covering 40% of farm household from 28.3% right now. Doing business ranking, the target is to rank in 60, which is right now 94th. And low remittance cost also. Remittance is such a significant part of Nepal's economy. From 3.5%, we want to reduce it to 2%. SMEs, they work in a lot of these things. SMEs also, there is one nice study from Britain. Every pound is spent by authority for SMEs growth and development, 63 pence was spent in local areas, compared to 40 pence on 40 pence on a pound is spent with large businesses. So anything we spend, anything the government spends on SMEs, actually most of it goes to local areas. So it helps in reducing inequality and all that. So SDG 11 is about making good settlement, safe, resilient, sustainable settlement. Nepal, the target is to reduce slum dwellers from 400,000 people right now to 125,000 people. Less than 5% of household will have thatched or straw roof by 2030 from 15.3% of household right now. Similarly, 60% of household will be living in safe houses from 37.8% right now. 50% people will have access to safe public transportation from 13.4% right now. 80% people will have paved road within 30 minutes of walking from 50% right now, 59%. 60 planned new cities from 23 right now, and 20% household will have 5 or more people. So right now, only right now around 40% household will have do have five or more people right now. So a lot of transportation related, a lot of housing related sectors are occupied by SMEs right now. For example, transportation sector is one of them. Actually, owners on average have one truck in Nepal. So basically, all truck owners, more than 60, almost 70% truck owners have one truck. I carried out that survey 5 years ago. So transportation sector is occupied by pretty much all small entrepreneurs, and so they can contribute to the SDG 11 a lot. SDG 12 is about sustainable consumption and production patterns. So right now, 15%, 13.2% of energy consumption is fossil fuel. Want to make it 15% by 2030. 0.09 per capita cubic meter consumption of wood right now in 2019. Want to make it down to 0.05. Zero use of plastics. The harvest loss, post-harvest loss right now is 11%. Nepal wants to bring it down to 1% by 2030. Reuse of glass and metal products, right now it's only 30%, wants to make it 90% by 2030. So you can see, actually in India, there was a working group paper for 12 five-year plan. They estimated that 70% of all pollution in India was due to SMEs. In Nepal, I haven't seen that that classification yet, but I assume that it will be no different from India. So they contribute pollution in a big time, and they, by using better technology, they can help in achieving this SDG 12. SDG 13. Transportation sector GHG emission target will be reduced from 6% from 12% in 2015 to 6% in 2030. Similarly, GHG emission target for industrial sector is 6%. 6% from 10.4% right now. And then GHG emission from commercial sector will be 2.5% from 4.3% right now. So there are 753 local level, only 120 villages have local adaptation plan right now. Sorry, only 36 villages have local adaptation plan right now. It will be met 120. 45 climate smart villages are in existence right now. 170 climate smart villages will be in existence by 2030. So SDG 14 is not applicable to Nepal because it's related to maritime. So stuff. So for SDG 15, the goal is to halt and reverse land degradation, biodiversity loss, combat desertification related things. Nepal's goal is to have 42% forest under community-based management by 2030, which is right now 39.8%. So it's pretty close to the target. 23.3% of Nepal's area will be protected area, which is right now around that actually. And a lot of forest area, the target is to hand over 44.6 thousand hectares of forest area to forest user groups. Right now, it's pretty much, it has already met the target. So 5,000 hectares of afforestation of public and private lands, and then 70% of mountain ecosystem will be protected areas. Right now, 68.4% of them are protected areas. So we are pretty much close to our target on SDG 15. For SDG 16, it's about access to justice for all and creation of inclusive society. So some of the goals are like, end of all child abuses, increase of transparency of public sector. The goal is to have the score of 5 out of 6. Good governance, great. Perception on corruption will be reduced. 35% of decision-making positions will be held by women, which is right now 20%. And all children will be registered after birth. The goal right now is, this number right now is 60%, 66%. And one of my own research actually showed that MFIs prevented the intensity of Maoist insurgency in Nepal. So, this is something pretty much, if you want to build peaceful and inclusive society, SMEs are your instrument. And the last goal is to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. The goals are, basically you mobilize resources for that. Overseas development assistance as a part of total domestic budget. 18% of ODA will be part of total domestic budget. Right now it's 15 to 16%. FDI as a percent of GDP. Right now it's pretty low, 7.3%. The expectation is to make it 20%. Remittance as a percentage of GDP. Right now it's around 31%. Plan is to make it 35%. Outstanding debt to GDP ratio, the plan is to make it 35%. Right now it's 28.8% because the country expects to spend more in the future. Similarly, internet density will be 95 per 100 people. Right now it's 65 per 100 people. The progress is being made on this. So these are the targets. So we can see that SMEs are really important for SDGs. So a lot of time you can see small regulation in favor of some particular SMEs actually help us in meeting SDGs. I can remember one regulation in 2004. It basically waived the cost of registering properties in women's name. So you have to pay less if you are registering in women's name. And this led to increase in women-owned firm in Nepal. Right now it's 12%, but it will actually increase more. We're hoping that this will empower women. There are empirical evidence of that also. And then, one of my last topic today was what happens to these targets if you have a lot of unanticipated shocks. And Nepal is actually not unfamiliar with these calamities. Look at for last 5 years, we had major earthquake, a lot of landslide, floods, very frequent actually. COVID-19 was among them. Nepal also faced blockade almost 4 to 5 months by India in 2015-16. They all had massive negative impact on farms, but more so for SMEs. COVID-19 is one example. The survey by Central Bank of Nepal recently showed the following. So during the lockdown, what was happening was for small firms, only 2.74% reported they were fully operational. And so that is actually for micro. Small and retail 5.9%. The biggest from 6.9% were fully operational. So you look at the biggest from they are, maybe it is marginal, but they always are in a better position. And 30% of cottage industries reported laying off workers, but only 14% of large firms reported that. So, they have more absorption capacity. And for policies right now, after during the COVID-19, commercial banks, we have recently asked them, the government has recently asked them to extend at least 15% of total loans to SMEs. This is actually 20% for development banks. So we have, in Nepal, we have, commercial bank, development bank, finance companies, microfinance, there are a bunch of, credit providers in country. So, 15 to 20%, that's the criteria right now. Initially, blanket waiver of 2% in interest rate was given to firms, and right now also the SME refinance program will will be provided at 2% interest rate by central banks. So the banks will add their premium and lend money to SMEs. So this is one thing. And government has also recently ratified directive for micro enterprises development program. So this is some new thing going on. I think they will also announce something more very soon for SMEs. But the point is, this is my last slide for today. They're fundamental instrument. The SMEs are fundamental instrument for meeting SDGs, but they're also very vulnerable and vulnerable to economic shocks. They're vulnerable to natural calamities. And what we need right now is, we need to build a resilient business environment, maybe resilient infrastructure system, so that the economic system is robust to unanticipated shocks, especially also anticipated shocks. So that's all for today.
So thank you, Dr. Poudel, for the sharing. It was mostly the focus on the experiences and practices from Nepal. So I would like now to open this discussion. I would like also to invite the viewers to pose the question. While waiting for the question from the viewers, I would like to start with this little bit philosophical question for Dr. Poudel. So we know that SMEs, if the individual they're small, but cumulatively they're very big. They're small but mighty, I would say. So their potentials to benefit the society can only be cultivated only with critical mass of effort. While at the same time, SDG targets, they require ambitious transformation for both public and private activities or entities. So this is quite a complex and really delicate setting up of the environment that we are having here. So is there any sort of low-hanging fruits in this complexity, or what is it the easiest thing that we can do so we can really have the immediate output or result of the effort in enhancing productivity in SMEs, for example? Please, Dr. Poudel.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, I think the low-hanging fruits. I wish there were like low-hanging fruits that could be achieved in really low cost. But a lot of time, I think if we need sustainable development for on the basis of SMEs, we also need to, the low-hanging fruits will not be really low capital low-hanging fruits, like investing very less but getting a lot. So in my opinion, our first investment will be on technology adoption for farmers. Farmers, you look at them, they contribute a lot to agriculture-based industries. They contribute to ending hunger and ending poverty, a lot of that target. But you look at many countries like Nepal, and the technology adoption in seed technologies, in maybe sprinkler technologies, that's very low. And by investing in these things, and it takes a lot of, I think it takes sometimes, it takes a determined effort, but that is one of the major low-hanging fruit. Investing in technology adoption by farmers, number one. But also with that, we need some kind of infrastructure investment. We need to connect the farmers to cities, not only farmers. You look at women gender parity. You also need another set of infrastructure investment, which is in energy. If women are provided with home appliances like washing machine, like dishwashers, like that, there will be and they will save a lot of time. They can even engage themselves in other productive activities in market. But for that, we need investment in electricity infrastructure, and for market, for farmers, if you want to connect them to market in cities, you also need investment in transportation infrastructures. Now, depending on countries, transportation infrastructure may or may not be a low-hanging fruit. For in some cases, like if you are trying to connect in Nepal or even in China, if you are connecting some remote village of Tibet with Lhasa or Chengdu, then it can be a significant investment. But if you start from nearby small cities, let's say connect some Dading to Kathmandu, let's say in Nepal, or in Cambodia, connect neighboring provinces to Phnom Penh, I think that will be a low-hanging fruit, in my opinion. Same thing is with other people, so a lot of people will be losing their job because what ILO considers there will be a digital transformation. A lot of, let's say, internal combustion service repair shops. I see in service repair shop, motor service repair shops. If you want to train these people in repairing electric vehicles, which will very soon, in my opinion, replace these shops, I think that is also a very good investment. So in training, in technology adoption, and in selected infrastructure investment, you will find significant low-hanging fruits.
Thank you for that, Dr. Poudel. I would like to take one of these questions from the viewers, Sabine Panta. Basically, it is asking about the asymmetric information. That usually, because most of the SMEs perhaps they are in the informal sector and they don't really know what's happening in the market, or perhaps policy support given by the government. So the question is about how to ensure that SMEs are aware of the government scheme of subsidy or loan, or perhaps any other support that is usually perhaps given in the context of Nepal, given by central bank to them directly. So how to overcome this problem?
There is definitely, it's a very difficult problem, not only with the small entrepreneurs, but also with a lot of farmers. They may not be entrepreneurs, but they benefit from government subsidy. And even in China, not only in Nepal, many of these subsidy programs, they are unclaimed. Part of the reason is, the government announces these subsidies, but there is no intermediary institution that takes this information to the beneficiaries. And a lot of times the beneficiaries are also those people who are not very well educated. And so, they are not the guys who will be keeping track of regulatory changes. And one of the things that I remember in China, what they did, and which is something I really liked, they introduced this thing like in 2001. And there was one really important economics paper that came out maybe a couple of years ago. So they sent these college graduates to village to be an interpreter between government policies and the beneficiaries at local level. So a lot of people were not claiming these subsidy programs that the government was announcing for poor people because they did not know, and local elites have no interest, no incentive to take this information to local poor people. And these college graduates were actually very instrumental in doing that. In Nepal also, there was a, like Go Back to Village program around 40 years ago. Nobody really knows what happened with that programs, but you actually need one more intermediate layers, which will probably be working from local government office, or you provide, or you need to incentivize banks. In Nepal's case, the problem is, if you remember, there was subsidy for poor farmers after earthquakes, poor individuals, actually, not really poor farmers, so that they could actually, claim some credit from central bank, like 20 lakh rupees for building new house or something. Pretty much nobody claimed those subsidy for building houses, low interest subsidy actually. So what was happening was either banks were reluctant to give those subsidies, and banks have a lot of time no incentive actually, because they have to go back and claim it with the central bank from refinance program. So banks, if they don't aggressively sell these programs, then who does it? Government doesn't have direct, they don't have capacity. They don't do anything directly to sell these programs. But you actually, right now I feel that, to address this asymmetric information, you actually need another layer of mechanism. It could be, providing incentive to the bank. It could be some NGOs, who are motivated workers, social entrepreneurs, something like that. One of these, just like the Chinese have done, in some aspect.
All right, I would like to relate my next question with SDG number 1, actually, which is poverty reductions. So there is this concept of micro franchising that has been cited as an effective tool to set up small business, to replicate it and then generate income and then help people to get out from the poverty, basically. So is there any successful example from Nepal that you can show to us with regard to this micro franchising?
It hasn't really picked up significantly the way I understand. There was one whole plant foundation's Kalpa Picture program. I don't know, business spring in India, maybe, comparable to, but they have not really, they don't really work in Nepal, I think. But, micro franchising, it can work successfully, but, they you know they are not going to be working like in United States. Like, in United States, the franchise system has become very successful. Not only micro, but general franchising also. But in Nepal, if they focused on agriculture productivity, if they, let's say, teach people to be more productive on using agriculture technologies, maybe they can do it. But because in the past in Nepal, we have very bad experience with what we call networking in Nepal. And micro franchising, sometimes it's very easy to confuse that with networking, even though it's not. It's a genuine, help the poor programs. So I haven't really seen very significant expansion of micro franchising in Nepal. But like I said, the Whole Planet Foundation's program, I think they have some promise. But they don't have a lot of fund also. They have, they don't get a lot of fund to run these programs. And the way I look at it, for government also, monitoring and doing impact evaluation for these programs is really difficult. And we have that kind of experience in the past. So I look at micro franchising. They are creating a lot of buzz right now in many countries, especially in India. They are always they're always willing to experiment with new things like these. And they always have some really committed, really good entrepreneurs who can actually bring positive results from these initiatives. But in Nepal, I haven't seen them. And what I've seen is really low investment, initial efforts only.
Okay, thank you so much. So, with regard to SDG number 9, my next question will be about that, which is about innovation. Do you think is it true that SMEs can adopt relatively easily innovation or new technology? Hence, they are becoming more innovative rather than large firms. If it is yes, or if it is no, for example, what is it? The experience, if any, from Nepal and from other developing countries that you can elaborate to us?
I think so. One of the things that you look at anything. I remember in 1990s or late 1990s, even the database system, everybody was using relative, what we call relative database system, I guess, as opposed to object-oriented database system. And a lot of time, what happens is, even if people come up with new, better technologies, large firms, they don't want to replace the old technologies that they are using, because they have already made sunk investments. significant sunk investment. Whereas for small firms, A, they are really trying to get more customers. B, they haven't really invested a lot in sunk investment. So they are always willing to change the technologies to gain upper hand, relative advantage over relatively larger firms also. So in my opinion, it's true that SMEs should be more willing to adopt new technologies. They should be willing to adopt new technologies, particularly, you know, in particularly because it's less costly for them and it promises a lot in terms of benefit. So in Nepal's case, a lot of SMEs, I mean, the new technologies. Part of the reason why we don't see a lot of SMEs using new technologies yet is because even the large firms they are not very large. Like I showed in the census, there are very few large firms. But you look at software companies or you look at the IT companies, what you see is large firms are being constantly challenged by newcomers. That is something you see. Maybe you look at the hotels also. New SMEs will probably be more willing to use climate-friendly, better technologies than the bigger hotels. That is something you can actually see. So that's how I look at it.
My next question is related to SDG number 10, which is about reducing the inequalities. So the concept of social enterprises, actually, that has been flourishing mostly within SMEs, brings innovative solutions to poverty, and also at the same time fill the gaps in service delivery, because some of the social enterprise entities, they're actually providing service delivery to people. So we have seen so many success story and good example of these practice. So what should public and private entities do to encourage this practice of having more and more social enterprises, due to the fact that they are good for the society? So we need to encourage them to grow more and more. So what do you think about this? What should they do?
Obviously help them in many ways, but let me go back to what they do, right? Social enterprises, the way I look at them, and they may be, they are one of those things which are popular in both developed countries. In California also they are very popular, and they are also popular in Nepal also, right? Everywhere they are very popular, particularly because you look at the market-based system, and one of the fact in a way is the accumulation of capital happens pretty quickly in many cases here. So you have some people being rich, and because they are using new technologies or something, their wealth gets reinvested, and they make more money. They make more money. They make more money, but it is all private. What happens is, this actually leads to growing inequality in a society. So what social franchises they are promising is that these profits are not private; they're going back to societies. And so, from a government's perspective, from my perspective, or from economist perspective, or from anybody's, you look at them, and if they actually are redistributing, if the profit can be made social, let's put it that way, then it's a good thing. It does not really contribute to inequality the way unfettered, capital accumulation leads to. So that is, but if that is the case, then what should we do? What are the I think if you are running a government, then one thing is, what are the fields that are really suitable for this kind of social franchises? So maybe a lot of agriculture based farms, they may be a good candidate for social franchises. I see a lot of cafe and others also, but some basic SMEs, they look like very good target for social franchises. But for that, who will be taking the risk? And whoever is taking a risk would in any way want more profit. So you want to make sure that the guy, the pioneer, or the people who are running the social franchises, social enterprises, they should get they should have better access to credit. In my opinion, if they come up with good project, the banks should be encouraged to fund them. In that way, I think we'll see less of inequality in a society. The incentives should always be there. I think there is always a tricky part about incentive. People should not be just getting money from bank and spending it randomly. So this is where the banks should really be careful. They must design really good evaluation program within them. But I think it's always good if the society, if the government sets a target for social enterprises, funding social enterprises, and then see where it goes. I think it's a good thing. It definitely will help in meeting SDGs, but their contribution will not be very significant in my opinion, at least in the short run. They're good to start with, but in a long run, they may be really significant. But in a short run, because it's still a relatively new concept. Obviously, you can characterize, let's say, a health sector, in education sector. Many schools are actually run by trust, which is almost like social franchise, right? Even the top universities in America, they are run by trust, and they're good. So if you account for them, then it's something really big. But if you are looking at consumer goods, other things, this small thing rather than just big hospitals or universities. But in Nepal's case also, a lot of private schools, if you can turn them into some kind of social enterprises, I think it's a good thing. But the role of social enterprises in a marketplace, in a more traditional sense, the marketplace will be inconsequential in a short term, but it's good to have them becoming like more consequential in the long term.
Thank you for that. This is perhaps my last question that I have for this talk. Before we close these sessions, basically it's related with the impact of this COVID-19 pandemic to the SMEs, and also to the achievement of the goals under the the UN SDGs. So there has been a story that because of the pandemic, so we have more people, more and more people, they cannot be employed, they're losing their job, and of course there's also this chance of having larger inequality. So it's somehow threatening the achievement that SMEs has been contributing before to the to the achievement of SDG itself. So what do you see? What do you think? What is the prospect of the resilience of SMEs, because they are well known for their resilience, right? To contribute back to the achievement of SDGs. Let's say in the next 3 to 5 years, let's say. Your opinion, please, Dr. Poudel.
Yeah, I think I'm also optimistic. I saw the evidence of what we call V-shaped recovery in aggregate economy, obviously in China, in India, in America also. We saw this recent data. So for SMEs also, if the economy is, it will be very unfortunate if the economy is recovering, if GDP is back to its usual level, but only large companies are benefiting, and this happened on the back of large companies' growth. That is the disaster, right? That is the worst news you can have. So to me, SMEs are resilient. They can be resilient, but also we should be careful. It may not be the same set of SMEs. So the SMEs die pretty quickly because of economic shock. I talked about economic shock to SMEs in my presentation also. So, but when one SME dies, maybe it is replaced by another SME. Somebody who had some fund saved, for these difficult times, they may replace the old SMEs. So it may not be the same set of people who will be replacing the SMEs. It could be new people. The worst thing is, after the shock, you will see a lot of, there was this study by Professor Haza after Pakistan liquidity crisis, after Pakistan's nuclear bomb testing in 1998. What he found was, after the shock, you have a lot of these middle-sized firms becoming small and really micro-sized, but the large firms were not affected. also there was what we call missing middle phenomena. Basically, the medium-sized firms were becoming smaller and the inequality was increasing. If something like that happens in a long run after COVID in countries like Nepal, then it's bad news because it will be like resulting in more inequality in a society. We don't want that. But I think what we are more likely to see in this case in a long run, which is in my definition right now, maybe in 10 years time, we will be seeing a lot of more SMEs, more in a usual scenario, more whatever it was before COVID-19, and I think SMEs will be back on track. Because they are natural constituent of the economy. It's very difficult for them to be entirely substituted by large firms or one of their firms.
I think we're reaching the end of this talk. With that, we would like to express our gratitude to Dr. Biswo Poudel for sharing his time and also experience with us. I would like also to thank viewers for their engagement. If you still have comments and questions, please leave them on our YouTube channel and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we could. If you would like to receive update on the future PTAL and any other updates related to APO, please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. So I would like to wish everyone and also Dr. Poudel to stay safe and productive. We thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sonia. Thanks for having me here. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Poudel. Likewise. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.